I'm the co-director for AdPR Connection this year, along with Sarah Bala. Today's panel is Things I Wish I Would Have Known. This panel will, our panelists will provide valuable insights to students in regards to some of the topics that come with learning experiences in their first job and internship. So we have some amazing professionals today. We have Kyla Brinkley with Fleischman Hillard, Mary Mashburn with Condé Nast, Maddie Weiss with 360i, and Stephen Hewell with Saatchi and Saatchi Wellness. So we're going to go around and have the professionals just explain a little bit about themselves, and we will start with Stephen.
Awesome. Well, hey, everyone. Again, I'm Stephen Hewell, UGA alum, and I currently work at Saatchi Wellness, like Julianne said, as an account executive. And actually, my time at Saatchi started last summer as a Publicis Health intern. And I was lucky enough to actually get hired full-time post-internship. So I've been there for about a year, and I've had the opportunity to work on several accounts. So for example, Galderma, which I'm currently on, Nestle, Procter & Gamble, as well as Boehringer Ingelheim. So I'm excited to, get to talk with you guys today and hopefully give you some good insights.
Awesome.
Hi, I'm Mary Mashburn. I graduated from Grady in 2014, had some great experiences with AdPR while I was there, networking and even getting my first job. I now work at Condé Nast in New York City. I've been there for about 3 years now. I manage a team of client services account managers, and we work specifically on the beauty category. So we get to work with really exciting beauty clients like Estee Lauder, L'Oreal, the Coty brands. And we partner with marketing and sales and everyone inside the publishing house to work with really great brands like Vogue and Allure, and just bringing the advertisers to our publishers.
Hi, I'm Maddie Weiss. I graduated from Grady in 2017. I now work at 360i in New York. I'm a senior media manager on the Sonos account. I've had some experience working on Nat Geo and then on DAZN, a sports streaming app, and now working on Sonos. I've been at 360i for about 3.5 years now, and similar to Stephen, I actually started here as an intern, post-grad, through an accelerated post-grad intern program that 360i offers that then transitioned nicely into full-time.
Hi everyone, my name is Kyla Brinkley. I graduated from Grady in 2018 and I'm currently based out of Fleischman Hillard in Los Angeles. I'm part of our social and innovation practice, so I focus on social media strategy and content. And I've worked on accounts including Salesforce, Bose, and Kaiser Permanente. And I'm also the diversity champion for our Southern California region.
Awesome. Well, as y'all can see, we have some amazing professionals. So we're going to start with the first question. The first question is, what is one thing that you now know through your career that you wish you would have known in school?
I'll start off on that. The main thing that I wish I would have known is to not be so nervous. I think when I first went into, just even interning, I had such high expectations for myself of, how to present myself and being able to answer all these questions and everything. And it ended up actually hindering the work that I was able to do. So just keeping in mind that no one expects you to know everything and have all the answers. This, especially with internships, it's a learning experience. You're there to learn, you're there to grow. And even when you start, your full-time job and start your career, it's a learning process. You're not going to even know how to do the job fully in the first month. So just taking a breath and slowing down and trying to soak up as much as you can so you can do the job effectively, I think is really important and something I wish I would have known.
I agree with one of the points that you made, Stephen. Just you will not know everything in the first month. You might not even know everything in the first year. So just being comfortable with being uncomfortable, just to kind of piggyback off that one. Another thing I wish that I had known, or more so that I should have known, I use Excel every single day. And I wish I paid a little bit more attention in that MIST class with those pivot tables and VLOOKUPs, because it really does make your job a whole lot easier when you can whip through Excel really quickly. And two other points I'll make, take a finance class, if not personally, professionally, like just understand revenue, understand profitability and how your job plays into that. And soft skills go a long way, kind of what Stephen was saying, like don't be so nervous, but just know that you are personable and relatable and teachable. And just having those sensibilities about you can really differentiate you from other people.
And I'll kind of piggyback off of both of those points. I think similar to Stephen, I would be so nervous in college going to interviews and making sure I had to have the perfect resume, the perfect interview, raise my hand for everything in class, everything Grady had to offer. And you should be doing that to an extent. There's so much great experience Grady has to offer. But being on this side of the interview process and looking for potential candidates for a post-grad position, it's really opened my eyes to what we're looking for on this side is not someone who knows how to calculate a CPM and knows how to manage refrequency buy for a spot radio plan. Like, we don't care. What we want and what's most valuable for a new hire is someone who's willing to learn, and what your past experience can show is that you are teachable and willing to learn, because honestly, I'd say 95% of what you do on the job in that first year, you're going to learn on the job. And honestly, most employers would probably prefer someone that comes in with a relatively blank slate where they can learn that team's process, that team's preferred ways of working. So what you can do now to prepare for post-grad and for that first job is just making yourself learnable, teachable, and ready to learn new skill sets while mastering what you are being taught in school. So then you're ready to take on whatever that first job throws your way.
I would actually fully agree with Maddie, and that's what I was going to talk about too, is that one of the biggest things that I always tell people is when I was in school, and I feel like it's emphasized when you're in school, especially when you're preparing and you're studying PR and you're wanting to go into agency, and it's really emphasized like what industry you want to work in. So for example, like when I was in school, I was like, I never want to do healthcare PR. Like that's not what I want to do at all. But you realize once you're in it that you get more opportunities when you are that blank slate, and you're more open to working on different accounts and working on different teams, because that's how you learn and get those opportunities. And I would say overall, especially when you're starting out, like for me, for example, it's been more about the function that you play rather than like the actual industry of the clients that you're working on. Obviously, later on, it's really important to start specializing if that's what you're interested in. But I would say at the beginning, it's really important just to soak it all in and work on different accounts, even if it's not the sexiest account. Now, for example, I mostly do focus on healthcare, everywhere from bigger companies like Kaiser Permanente to a small endoscopy company here in Southern California. But I love those clients. It's a really fun account. And so it's one of those things that, like, I think if I had been less open to it, I wouldn't have gotten as many opportunities to really increase my experience with social strategy and content. And so I think that's one thing, in college, I wish I had been more aware of, and I probably would have been open to even more opportunities back then as well.
Awesome, super insightful and helpful answers, so thank you. So our next question is, what are the most valuable things students should be doing in college to impress future employees? As we know, Grady has lots to offer, so what do y'all think?
Well, there's a lot of things you can do, obviously, but I think the first, as a Grady student, definitely take advantage of all of the things Grady has to offer. So whether that's getting involved with like ADPR club, coming to, events like this, getting involved with Talking Dog, which is something that was really advantageous to me to kind of understand the agency process and start working with clients in the real world. Possibly go on those Grady agency trips to really see what it's like to be in an agency, and if that's, the industry you want to be in. But then beyond just Grady, obviously getting relevant real world experience through internships, I think, is the most key thing. And, try to tailor those internships towards, the role and the industry that you want to be in, whether that's account or creative or whatever else. But having as much experience outside of school as possible is really what's going to differentiate you from everyone else. And then one other thing I will say is to start sharpening your skills now, kind of like what Mary said earlier, like if you want to be in an account or like a project management role, like know Microsoft Suite, like be able to make a mean PowerPoint deck, like fly through Excel, like all those skills are so important. And, you know, on the first day, if you already have that down pat, it'll make your job so much easier. And then if you're more on like the creative side, start playing with Adobe Photoshop and InDesign and like learn those skills, and even start creating your own ads and your portfolio early on. So having as much to show your future employer and show that you are passionate about, you know, whatever you want to do is really important.
Yes, I agree too. There's so much that UGA and Grady has to offer. So take advantage of all those programs. That kind of plays into just like using your network and tapping into the people around you. It really does make a difference, kind of who you know, and establishing those connections. And from personal experience, I don't know if your professors would agree with me, but I certainly had a senior spring where I just hustled. I went on all the trips. I went into Atlanta. Like I really did start prioritizing my next steps in that senior semester, where I knew like I needed a job when I graduated. So I made sure that I was hustling and I was out there meeting people, and I took advantage of those Grady trips where we actually went into Atlanta and we like went to the Weather Channel and we went to 22 Squared, and then we went to Turner, or the CNN Center. And that's where I actually met the person who ended up hiring me. Like I made a connection, we chatted. And so before the job was even posted, she reached out to me saying, I remember meeting you, we're about to post this job, you should apply. So that was just my little piece of advice, whereas just a little bit of hustle can pay off. And lastly, I would say take a public speaking class. That was probably one of the scariest things I did in school. I made sure I took a public speaking class without any of my friends in it. I just was doing it for me so that I could sharpen just my storytelling skills, even if it was just pitching myself, or even in my role now where I'm pitching to clients, even pitching to internal stakeholders, just knowing how to tell a compelling story and get rid of those filler words like and like this, to make yourself just a little bit more compelling when you are in that working world and trying to make a difference and differentiate yourself.
Yeah, I think to Mary's point, that second semester senior hustle is definitely important. But I also think, I'm not sure what years we have on the line, but it's never too early to start. I know in this industry, when it comes to actually hiring, you're going to hear so many times, you'll watch your finance friends get jobs in October, and you'll just be so frustrated waiting until like May 4th for the May 7th start date. And that's just the reality of this industry. But it's never too early to start going to those meetings, get involved in ad club, raise your hand in class for opportunities, because if anything, it's practice. And similar to Mary, I got my first internship opportunity from going to an ad club meeting and networking with one of the guest speakers. And then she reached out to me. I was in Atlanta over winter break, and I was like, hey, I'm in Atlanta, would love to stop by the office. She was like, let me set you up with our hiring manager, like showed me around the office, had just like a personal one-on-one experience. And then that led to getting hired. So it's all about making those connections early on and then maintaining them. And back to the original question, I think obviously internship experience is so invaluable when it comes to getting real world experience. But I also know, especially with the realities of COVID and just not everyone has the opportunity to intern in college, and that's totally fine. Being on the employer side, when we look for potential candidates, I think there are so many other ways that you can make yourself stand out, whether it's taking a certificate course at Georgia and something you're passionate about to help you stand apart from other peers, and just sharpening specific skill sets like the new media certificate, or reaching out to a local Athens, like mom and pop shop, to help them with their social media presence, something that you're passionate about, and just work on that side hustle and prove that you still have relevant industry skills that excite you and you're passionate about, but also can adapt to whatever needs in your life. If you have to have a job and you might not be able to take an unpaid internship, like that's totally fine.
Yeah, I would just echo a lot of what the team here has said, and just say also that just taking advantage of our alumni network is really strong, and especially even while you're still a student can be really valuable. And taking advantage to the point of like getting mentors, and not always, reaching out to those people when you are saying that I specifically want a job at your company, just asking them for advice about their career experience, and you never know who people can connect you to. And especially during COVID, I think people are kind of, even more willing now to take a virtual coffee chat. Like since everyone is obviously working from home, it's honestly a little bit easier to connect with people in different places. I get a lot of messages on LinkedIn from students who like want to connect, and I feel like a lot of times they're like surprised that I'll respond and stuff, but people love talking to fellow alumni. Like we have a really strong network. People love talking about the dogs. So it's always a great resource to take advantage of. And we all have great networks. And so it's really great to be able to like connect with people and see, just pick their brain and ask them about, even like this panel, things that they wish they had known back then, and kind of things that they've learned during their career journey. And I would say don't be afraid either to reach out to people, during your journey if you're, interested in making a transition or interested in looking at internships and things like that, just to get help. Even if you feel like, oh, I met this person a while ago and they're not going to want to help me anymore, like people will surprise you and they're always willing to, connect you with someone else. And I'd say that was a big thing for me just in getting my internship opportunities when I was still a student, was definitely taking advantage of. I know at Grady we have the mentorship like formal program. In addition to that, I did like Grady ambassadors, and there was a great number of programs that we would do there where like alumni would come back and speak, and I would like talk to them after those panels and like, ask them about their experiences. So there's a lot of ways that you can get to know different people and in a bunch of different, major companies and things like that. So definitely, I would say take advantage of that.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the many things that we all love about Grady is our awesome networking community. So thank you for that. And so before I go to our last final pre-written question, I just want to tell everyone that we have a Q&A box. So if you have any questions for the panelists, feel free to enter them into the Q&A box. So our last question that we have so far is, do you have any advice for students who are looking to enter the job market after college? And you can do this corona-wise or just in general.
Ooh, good one. I think it's kind of just echoing what everybody else just kind of said, especially with networking. So get in contact with anyone that you would previously met, like through your, through networking opportunities, through internships, through panels, etc. And, just reach out over LinkedIn and try to get in contact, see if anything's open. I think just using those opportunities and those ways in is going to be the best way to actually get your name in there versus just applying blankly all throughout LinkedIn. You know what I mean? Or if you have any friends who have already graduated that have positions, reach out to them and see if anything's open. I think that's very advantageous. And then if you had a previous internship, like we said, or like Maddie said, not everyone has the opportunity to do that, and that's not feasible for everyone. But if you did have one, definitely reach back out and see, because if you did a good job, which all Grady students definitely do, they want to hire the talent that they've already trained and that they know already have the experience. So yeah, take advantage of those opportunities, and just keep trying.
Yep. And we kind of touched on this before, but just proving that you're teachable. Like you don't need to necessarily meet every single requirement in terms of hard skills, but as long as you prove you're teachable and have just a sense of curiosity about you, that you can absorb and you can learn and you can catch on. And also having a sense of humility. Just if you make a mistake or maybe do something wrong, like accept it and move on and just keep going and keep trucking along. I will say thank you notes go a long way. So as you're interviewing and meeting a lot of people, I do hire people for my team. And so the thank you notes, they still do make a difference, even if it is an email, just following up and making sure it's personalized, because I do have candidates come in that interview with a few people on my team, and then we compare our thank you notes and they're completely identical. So make sure it's working for you. Also a bit of advice, whether it's right or wrong, you will be Googled. Your future employer will Google you. So take that for what you will. And do your research. Just know what the company stands for. Know if the company is doing well. Make sure that you do feel that mutual vibe when you're talking with someone. So it's someone that you can work with and will get along with, because happiness at work is really important. And you just want to make sure that you're making the right decision for yourself. And also just doing the right decision for the company that you're working with too.
That last point was a nice segue into one of the points I was going to make is the interview process, and kind of back to my first point of in college, there's so much pressure and nerves around the interview, and you have to be this perfect candidate and you're being grilled with these questions. But the reality is on this side, we're looking for someone who's willing to have this be a two-way conversation. The employer is interviewing the potential candidate, but you're also interviewing that employer. They don't know who else you're talking to. For all they know, you could be having 4 interviews lined up that week. And to Mary's point, you want to make sure it's a good fit for you as much as you're a good fit for them. So not to say harass them with questions, but make sure you're asking, what's the team structure like? Who would you be working with on the day-to-day? What's their preferred working style? In the COVID world, do they prefer video calls or phone calls? Like little things like that. Try to understand what you would be doing every day on that team, because it's a lot of hours of your life spent on that team. So make sure it's something that you want to do. On that note though, keep an open mind, because the first job, you might know what you want to do, and that could 100% change. And that's the beauty of internships, is you can really feel out the waters and see, does this interest me? You can meet people when you're interning, or if it's your first job out of school, you can network with a team you work with that you're not directly on, and maybe you meet with your data and analytics manager, and you realize, hey, I'm really interested in data and the number side of this campaign. So you can build that relationship from there. So I would try not put too much pressure on having this first job be perfect. And when you do get into that first job, really trying to make as many connections as you can and better understand where's the best fit for you once you get there, because that's totally fine. And from personal experience, when I was in Grady, I thought the way agencies worked, I also came from a PR background. So I went in thinking I can do account management, I can do strategy, or I can do creative. And then there's this thing called media over here. I don't know much about it, so I'm just not going to touch it. And then the way the internship played out is I applied for the account manager role, and those were already taken. So the recruiter was like, we're interested, but would you be willing to take this media internship role? And like, I could have easily said, no, that's not what I want, but I took it and I rolled with it. And now I absolutely love being in media, and I've opened my mind a lot more and think it's actually a better fit for me than what I would have been doing. So all that to say, keep an open mind and keep your options open.
I actually had a similar experience, and I would totally agree. And I would say kind of what everyone else has been saying, like over communicating what you're interested in, what you're interested in and what you want to learn. For me, for example, when I originally applied for Fleischman-Hillard, I applied for the diversity fellowship program. And I specifically told the team, like, hey, I'm really interested in gaining experience in social media analytics, because up until then, all of my experience had been in media relations. So I was interested in getting a new skill for, like, you know, whether or not I end up staying at Fleischman or not. And the team actually really appreciated that. And they're like, we're actually looking for someone who is passionate about this and hoping to fill that role. So I feel like that's honestly really why I got that job. And it just happened to be because I was, you know, really clear about like what I was hoping to learn. And with that kind of, you know, launched my career path, I would say, because everything that I do now and what I focus on, I've learned on the job. And it's about like asking people, you know, to train you, asking people about their role and what they're doing within the company, and gaining experience that way and being really open to different opportunities. And I would reemphasize too, like about the interview going both ways. Currently now I recruit for the diversity fellowship program, and I really appreciate it when we have applicants who ask those like smart and kind of tough questions to us that show that they're thinking about whether or not they see themselves at our company. For example, obviously since the diversity program, with everything going on right now, I had a candidate ask me just flat out, you know, do you feel supported at your company as a Black employee? And I really appreciated that. And I gave them, you know, my honest answer. And it really showed that they were thinking about, you know, the long term and whether they could see themselves here, even outside of the work itself, but when it comes to culture as well. So I definitely would make sure that you know, both do research about, you know, the culture and things, but ask about that as well when you're even doing informational interviews, because you can learn a lot and people are surprisingly really willing to tell you about, you know, their experience and what they really think about, you know, their company. So
Okay, so I think we only have time for about one more question from a student, and not everyone has to answer this one. It's if they don't want. But what are your opinions on cold emailing and reaching out to companies you potentially want to work for about networking or potential internships? What is the best way to go around this?
I can quickly chime in because I've had a few of these come through actually in the past few weeks. And I completely understand on the student side of this. I was a nervous wreck. I'm like, don't be that annoying kid who's emailing these professionals every day. But there's a fine line. And to, I think it was Kyla's point before, we like the Grady and Georgia network, alumni network is so tight, and people love getting an email. At least I love getting an email from someone that says like "Go Dogs," reaching out from current Georgia student and just wanting to have an informational interview. And as long as you're respectful of that professional's time and understand you might have 4 urgent client deadlines due this week, so that's fine if you can't meet for another 3 weeks, but just want to put my name out there and see if you have the time. Would love to chat and pick your brain about some things. And I think that's the best way to get your foot in the door is with those some level of mutual connection, even if it's as broad as we both went to Georgia or my friend knows someone. Like as long as you have some connection and you're not just like Googling like recruiter at 360i.com or something, like that's probably not going to get you so far. But having that personal one-to-one conversation never hurts. And people in this industry, for the most part, got to where they are from similar paths. And this industry is so small and connected that people understand the struggle and can relate. And I think that's why most professionals are willing to help out students looking for a job.
I agree. And when you're reaching out, you're totally fine to reach out and establish that connection, or even if there's a very loose connection, but just also be prepared, because I have gotten on the phone with some people and they're like, okay, you pitch to me. What is your company like? What are the jobs available? And I'm like, this isn't how that works. Like if you're going to reach out to someone, have your questions, have your research done, just so, again, like Maddie was saying, just be respectful of time. Like get your questions, let's get in and out. And let's have a productive conversation. So I want to help you. I want to pass you on. I want to tell everyone in my company about this great Georgia grad I just talked to and that we have to hire. So just be prepared. Short and sweet.